All right. Chaim's here. Okay,
Chaim's here. Good morning, Chaim.
Good morning.
Okay, let's put this on mute and let's start. All right, somebody sees the screen? Good. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking on Tuesday when we were learning the Mimer. So again, and just short, the Mimer is talking about the influence that Mashiach is having on the world, and it asks, what does he have to be a king for? So the Rebbe says that Mashiach has two aspects. One is to give us a transcendent experience of godliness that will be able to experience Hashem in a way which is completely beyond our capabilities, and that's the function of the King of Mashiach, to give us something which is head and shoulders above what we can handle. And it'll be a transcendent experience. And the second experience is as a teacher, teaches a student, where the teacher explains it to the student, make sure the student understands it. The same thing, Mashiach is also going to give us godliness, which we could understand and we could relate to, but at the same time, it'll be much, much greater than anything that we've experienced in the past, anything which we've ever experienced before. So it will upgrade our seeing godliness and will upgrade our understanding of godliness. How do we, then the Rebbe went into to explain, is we prepare for this in the time of exile. Nowadays in exile, that's how we prepare for the coming of Mashiach in these two aspects. So we've been talking till now is that when we serve Hashem with netzach means with victory. When we serve, you can hit on the video. So when you serve Hashem with that determination that no matter what happens, there's no other option, as we said, Mesiras Nefesh. So what we're doing is we're serving Hashem with the essence of our soul, which is beyond anything. And so therefore Hashem gives us the revelation of Mashiach as a king, which is beyond our understanding. So by me and you serving Hashem beyond our reason, which is through netzach, through this idea of being of that determination of having to win at all costs, of Mesiras Nefesh, that with that merit we get that revelation. Mashiach comes. But now the Rebbe is going to the other part, and that is how Mashiach is a teacher, and that Mashiach is going to upgrade our understanding of godliness. And that's what we started explaining here. And the Rebbe starts the discussion with explaining Yerida Tzerech Aliyah, that going into Galus, going into exile, is going down in order to go up. In general, anytime anybody goes down, it's all for a higher purpose. It's all in order to go up higher. And he says the same things with our soul. Our neshama, before it came down to this world, was in heaven. It was much greater, higher than it is now, but it comes down in order that when it goes back up, it should go even higher than it was before. And this all began, he said, by the first tzimtzum, because the first tzimtzum was the first time that we went down. So again, what's tzimtzum? Tzimtzum is Hashem contracting his light, Hashem minimizing his light. And the difference, and we talked about the difference between the first tzimtzum, the first contraction of the light, and all other tzimtzumim. What makes the first tzimtzum different, it didn't just minimize the light. It didn't just conceal the light, but it completely removed the light. So you had, everywhere was filled with Hashem's light. And then what Hashem did is he made can I draw? Let's see if this works, right? So the way you would put it is, so before there was empty, and then Hashem makes this, but on the big circle. In that circle, there was no godliness inside of it. And then what Hashem do? He took a little bit of his light and he brought it into that circle called the kav, right? So Hashem's infinite light remains beyond the circle. There's this empty vacuum in the middle, and then the Hashem brings a little bit of his light through the circle. And what the Rebbe says is that what did the tzimtzum affect? What did this contracting of the light, and removing of the light, and then bringing this little light in? What did the tzimtzum affect? So number one, he says it affected the light which is on the outside. You're turning off. It affected the light which is on the outside. How? So he says like this, even though that nothing changed essentially in the light which is outside the circle, but what happens is that this light no longer shines. It no longer emanates. It went back to its source. So the change wasn't in the light itself, but it was a change in the shining of the light. That the light now is, instead of coming out and shining, it's now concealed. So that's the difference that the tzimtzum caused in the light which transcends the circle, which transcends the tzimtzum. And then you have the light which comes down into the tzimtzum. And in that as well, the tzimtzum changed, but over here it changed the light itself. That before it was an infinite light, and now the light is a limited, finite light. So that's the first thing. Okay, so you have two parts to the light that is outside the circle, and light which comes into the circle. So now the light again, which comes into the circle, it actually changed the light. That is no longer infinite light. Now it's a finite light till it comes down into a vessel, right, and actually changes the light. But then you have the light that is beyond the circle, which the effect that the tzimtzum has, the light beyond the circle, is not in the light itself, but in the way that the fact that it doesn't shine anymore. It doesn't do what it does as light, because it goes back into its source. But then the Rebbe continues that in the light that comes down into the circle, with this kav, this line of light that comes down, there's also different levels in that light. There's different changes in the light. And he gives 3 levels, how that light changes, okay? So that first, actually, before we do that, let's break it up a little bit. So let's learn again inside what we just did, and then we'll go to the next part. So let's start from Dalet. Okay, here we have. Let's start from Dalet. He continues in the discourse, the biur davar zeh, to explain this thing, to explain why the revelation we're going to get when Mashiach comes is specifically through the avodah, the service that we do in exile. Yuvan mi'inyan yiridus haneshama lamata, we'll be able to get a better understanding of it by understanding why our neshama, why our soul comes down here below in this world. Shi'irida yitzerech aliyah, that the coming down is in order to go back even higher. So have a better understanding of what the purpose of galus, of exile, and how we're going to get to a greater revelation when Mashiach comes. Right, we'll be able to understand it through Yiridat Tzerech Aliyah, through understanding how the neshama comes down, and when it comes down, it's in order to go even higher. To move on from here, we understand the galus, that also just like when the neshama comes down into the world, it's in order to go higher than it was before. The same thing is that when the neshama comes down into galus, into exile, that it's in order to go even higher than it was before. That it's in order to go even higher than it was before. That through the service that we do in exile, that will bring the revelation when Mashiach comes, and it will be higher than it was when it was originally in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because Yirida Tzerech Aliyah, because the going down is in order to go higher. And here the Rebbe adds that, again, the point that the Rebbe adds, as you mentioned before, is that Mashiach, we said, has 2 functions. Mashiach is going to be a king and is also be a teacher. So we've already explained how Mashiach is going to be a king. But now the Rebbe is going to explain how through understanding this concept of the neshama coming down into the world is going to go even higher than it was before, is going to explain how we're going to merit a higher revelation of Mashiach in our understanding and in our perception of Hashem. That's even greater than it was in the times of Beis Hamikdash. Again, by understanding Yiridat Tzerech Aliyah, that the going down is going to go up higher. That the whole purpose of going out to exile is at the outset was only to go even higher. This explains the reason Shegam Gili the Mashiach, Shigal b'Torah, but also that which Mashiach is going to reveal as a teacher. And a teacher reveals Behasag v'Re'iyah, that we'll be able to understand it, we'll be able to perceive it. But Dafka Yaved is Managalos, that also comes specifically through what we do in the time of exile. This will be understood through, again, Yerid Tzarech Aliyah, that we go down in order to go higher. Even though that we saw only in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, and our understanding was much greater in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, but yet what we do in this day and age, in exile, is still gonna lead to a greater understanding of Hashem. How? Because the Yerid Tzarech Aliyah, because going down is in order to go up even higher. So the going down go up even higher means that even in our perception, where you're going down, you're understanding less than you did before. You're seeing nothing compared to what you saw before in the Beis Hamikdash, but yet the going down is in order to go up. Meaning you'll understand more and better. You understand more and better when Mashiach comes, because we went down into exile. The Yuvan Zed, so now he explains that this is all understood by the Tzimtzum. Yuvan Zed, so be able to understand this by understanding the whole concept of going down in the general system, in the general sense of the whole creation. So we're talking about three going downs here, right? So he mentions that the going down into exile is similar to the going down of the neshama into the body, which is in order to go up even higher than it was before. But this all began with the whole creation, that in order for Hashem to create, his light had to come down in order to create. And that also, what is the purpose of the tzimtzum? What is the purpose of the coming down, of the contracting of the light, is again in order to go even higher than it was before. So that is the general Yerid Tzarech Aliyah, the original Yerid Tzarech Aliyah, the original going down in order to go up even higher, which is in the very beginning, before creation, when Hashem had to bring down his light in order to go up even higher. So be able to understand this by understanding in general the coming down of Hashem's light when it came down in order to go into the chain link of creation, of the system of creation. The very beginning, the very first going down is the original tzimtzum. As we said, the original tzimtzum, when he not only contracted his light, but removed his light and he put it outside the circle, and then in that circle he brought in a little bit of the original light. In the very beginning, the very first coming down is that original tzimtzum. V'yadua the pe'ula sat tzimtzum hu hein ba'ein sefa blivol v'hein ba'ar shebchinas vul ha'ar shel harla ilmis. That the effect that the tzimtzum had was both in the infinite light, which is before the tzimtzum, and in the light which comes down afterwards, in the limited light which comes down through the tzimtzum. So the tzimtzum did not just affect the light which came down through the tzimtzum and into the empty space, but it also had an effect on the light which is beyond the circle. And he explains why. The effect that the tzimtzum had on the infinite light is that the light went back, it was hidden and went back into its source. The and no longer shines in that empty space that Hashem created, in that middle of that circle, in the empty space. V'hainu, what does that mean? That the effect that the tzimtzum has on this light is not in the light itself. It doesn't change the light itself, but what it did change is that it no longer shines. So it had an effect on this light, which is beyond the circle, but it didn't change the light itself, just the way it emerges, it shines. And the reason for that is because he says this light is beyond tzimtzum, is beyond anything, and therefore the tzimtzum couldn't affect it. But what it did do is it hid the light. The light which is beyond the circle is incredibly greater and completely beyond worlds. So therefore, the light, the tzimtzum has no ability to affect a lowering or a change or a limiting of that light. And the whole effect that the tzimtzum has on this light is only that it should not shine in the empty space. So again, just we said it too many times probably, but Hashem made this tzimtzum by emptying out his light from the big circle. So the light on the outside is also affected by how that it no longer shines in this empty space. But the light is too great to actually be changed. So the light which comes down into the circle gets changed, but the light which is beyond the circle does not get changed. Why? He says, because the light is beyond the world, and therefore the tzimtzum cannot change it. And now he explains the next part, that even in the light that comes down in the circle, you also have various changes. So let's work this through a little bit. So there's a saying, a rule, so to speak, that the sages say, is that just like Hashem has the ability to be infinite, Hashem also has the ability to be finite. So when you call Hashem Oir Ein Sof, the infinite light or the infinite God, right? If you think about it, being infinite also has its limitations. The limitations of infinity is that it cannot be finite. How do you take something which is infinite, right, and put it into something? How do I take infinity and put it into this cup? It's two different existences. It's two different realities. You can't take something which is infinite and put it into a finite cup. It doesn't work. So infinity has to be infinite in every single way. But if you say that about Hashem, then what have you done? Then you've minimized his abilities. If Hashem cannot be finite, then he's limited. He's limited in being infinite. And so therefore you must say that Hashem has the power, has the ability to be finite, just like he has the power and the ability to be infinite, which of course is how he creates. How he creates is he takes his light and he limits it. He makes it finite. He makes it limited. Because as I say that if you say that Hashem can't limit himself, then you're taking away from his shlemos, from his completeness. Hashem is the completeness. He's the perfect. He's as perfect as it gets, and part of being perfect is the ability to limit oneself. As humans, it's the same thing, right? If we did things infinitely without an end, that wouldn't be equality. That would be no good. We have to be able to put an end to things in order to make things work. And even with the greatest abilities that we have, right? If I don't know, as an example maybe, love, right? If you don't put boundaries around love, then it can suffocate. Love suffocates. You have to be able to make boundaries. Even though it's one of the most amazing qualities that we have is love. But if you don't put boundaries around it, then it's not going to be healthy. And the opposite, it's going to be destructive. Being able to limit oneself is an incredibly important quality. It's not something it's not something bad. It's not something negative. It's the opposite. It's something positive. It's something that we need in order to succeed in life, in order to do anything in life. And the same thing they say about the Eibishter, about Hashem. That if you just say that Hashem has the ability to be infinite, then you're limiting him, because that means that he can't limit himself, which that would mean he's not perfect, because he can't do anything, he can't do everything. Which goes to kind of another thing, to understand this a little bit more. There's the famous question: Could Hashem create a rock which is too heavy for him to pick up? You guys heard that? You probably heard that philosophical question before. Could Hashem create something which is too heavy for him to pick up? So, what's the answer to that question? Could he or not? Could he? You ever thought about this one?
I mean, you can't. He has to be able to do it. He has to be able to do anything, right? So of course,
including be able to do whatever he wants, including making a rock or something to pick up. But of course, if he can't pick it up, then you're limiting him, right? So the most basic answer.
No, I'm not limiting it. He's limiting himself. That's different.
Good point. So there's a lot of different answers to it, and there's a philosophical answer, a Kabbalistic answer, a Hasidic answer. But what's the philosophical, most basic answer to the question? The most basic answer to this question is that no, he cannot. Why? Because if he could make a rock which is too heavy for him to pick up, that's not good. That doesn't make him more perfect. That makes him less perfect. If you could say that he can create a rock which he can't pick up, then you're limiting him. That's not a good thing. That's a negative thing. That's not being perfect, that's being imperfect. And so according to Jewish philosophy, right, what would you say is that no, he can't do it. Because Hashem is the most perfect possible. So does he have something which is imperfect? Not necessarily. So that's why what's the point I'm bringing out? When it comes to when limiting oneself, that's not being imperfect. The ability to limit oneself makes you more perfect, not less perfect. And that's why to say that Hashem can't limit himself, that is a negative. That's saying that he's not fully perfect. So that's why we say that Hashem has the ability to limit himself, just like he has the ability to be unlimited, just like he has the ability to be infinite, he has the ability to be finite, because that is part of his perfectness. Now, again, when it comes to the rock issue, there's deeper answers to that. But the point I just wanted to bring out is that there are those that will say that Hashem doesn't have things that make him imperfect. Why? Because he is the perfect of everything. So whatever is better and more and greater and whatever more perfect, that's him. And if it's not, then he doesn't have it. And it's not a contradiction because he's the most perfect of everything. But the point is that being finite is being more perfect, not less. Because if you cannot limit yourself, then it doesn't make you more perfect, it makes you less perfect. So now that we have that thought, that Hashem has the ability to limit himself, just as he has the ability to be infinite. So what did the Tzimtzum do? So the Rebbe says here, what did the Tzimtzum do? Number one, the Tzimtzum divided, it separated. It separated the finite aspect of Hashem, of his light, from the infinite. When the light filled the circle, before the Tzimtzum, when the light was everywhere, what happens? The infinite light of Hashem dominates. That's all you see. That's all that you can perceive. And the finite part is completely consumed. It's completely hidden in the infinite light. So the first step of revealing the finite, what do you have to do? You have to separate it from the infinite light. And that is the first step of the Tzimtzum. That's the first step of the Tzimtzum, is to separate the finite light from the infinite light. And we're next option. But take everything off of the oven. So that's the first step of the Tzimtzum. The first change that the Tzimtzum did in the infinite light, in a light which comes into the circle, is number one, it separated the finite from the infinite. We talked about the teacher teaching a teacher. Oh gosh, are you okay? You okay? Okay, go get some ice. Right. So what did 10? So what did so the teacher, right? We talked about it like Einstein coming into a kindergarten class. And the first thing we said he has to do is a tzimtzum harishon. He has to do something which is similar to the original tzimtzum, which is to completely remove the way he understands the subject. And when he could do that, then he would be able to put himself in the student's mind, so to speak, and say, okay, what do I have to give to the student? And then go back into that original idea and pull out just a little string, which is essentially what this tzimtzum means. Hashem had to remove all the light and then bring out a light which is finite and which is on the level or able to come down into vessels, into limitations. But what happens when the teacher, when he removes the light, what is he doing? What he's basically doing is he's taking away the infinite understanding that he has, the unlimited understanding that he has of the subject, and now he can separate the finite from the infinite. You cannot bring out a finite understanding or a finite part of this idea if you don't first remove all that information, because there's the too much information is not going to allow you to take out that little bit that a child can understand. So the first thing the teacher has to do is to remove it completely. What it does is it separates the infinite from the finite. It's like refining silver or something. You got to take out the schmutz from the. That's the first step of the tzimtzum, is to separate the finite from the infinite. But yet, when you have the finite, it's not in a vessel yet. So now you have to take that finite, and then it becomes formed, so to speak, in 10 sfirot. It becomes defined, because even the original finite light, it's still much greater than being in any vessel or anything. So what's the next step? The next step is it gets 10 levels. It gets a 10 sfirot. And then the third thing is that comes down into a vessel. Let's do this quickly inside. We're running a little late. Okay, where are we holding here? Masha'en came right here. Masha'en came pu'ulas atzimtzum. What is the effect of the tzimtzum? The effect that the tzimtzum has on the light, which comes down into the world, that changes the light itself. In many ways. Aleph, shalivnei atzimtzum haya or zeh me'ura v'kol be'era blikvul. The first thing is that this light was originally mixed in and it was included in the infinite light. And through, you want some of that? And before the tzimtzum, and through the tzimtzum, that light gets separated. Originally, the finite light was included in the tzimtzum, in the infinite light. Now, what the tzimtzum does, it separates the finite light from the infinite light. Through that, the light goes down from its original level. That's the first step in the lowering of the infinite light, of the light that comes out into tzimtzum. Beis, the second step. Wait, I can't put on your shoes now. Beis, the idei shnim shafterech dilug at tzimtzum. The idei shnim shafterech dilug at tzimtzum shlei badragu ba b'chilas yischalkus asfiris. That when the light comes down and it jumps, so to speak, through the tzimtzum, which changes the light drastically. What happens, then it gets differentiated in actually 10 levels. So it becomes defined into something. As explained, as it is explained at great length in other places, that these spheres, these 10 qualities that Kabbalah talks about are not just in the vessel, but they're also in the light itself. And Gimel, the third step is then the light comes out into a vessel. Then it comes down into it becomes materialistic almost. It becomes like gashmias. It becomes almost physical. That the light becomes like the vessel. So the first step of the light is that number one is you have to differentiate it. You have to separate it from the infinite light. When you do that, then you can have a limited light. That's step number one. But once you do that, what happens? Then the 10 sfirot that are in the light comes out. Because there's a big discussion. That's what in the brackets here, you saw there's a big discussion is where these 10 sfirot come from. Are they in the light itself? Were they originally in the light? Or do the vessels create these 10 sfirot, these 10 different lights in the light? And what he says here is explained in many places that in the light itself you have 10 sfirot. The way to understand that is, again, we're going a little bit over time, but the way to understand is that the light, the colors in a rainbow, right? So where do those colors come from? It's because light has all these different colors, but when light is in its simple state, you don't see them. When you put it through the the whatever it goes, the mist of rain and whatever it is, what happens? It brings out the different colors in the light. So white light has all these different colors in it. You just don't see it. And so essentially, what did the tzimtzum do? It brought out the light. It made the light into a rainbow. It brought out the 10 different sfirot, which is in the light itself. And the third step is that once it comes down to that you have the 10 sfirot, now they can come down into actual vessels. The light can come down into chachma, into bina, into all the vessels. What happens then? Then the light actually changes according to the vessel. And the way to understand that is the way the neshama comes down into our body. That even though the neshama is much greater, much holier, much more spiritual, and it sees and experiences things which are much greater than the body before it comes down, right? When it's in heaven, it has a whole different experience in seeing and everything. But when the neshama comes down to the body, what happens? The body has such an effect on the soul that now all you see and all you feel and all you hear and all you can perceive is only physical matter. The body has such a strong effect on your soul that what your soul sees now is only the physical. You can no longer see spiritual. Even though 10 minutes ago, the soul, before it came down to the body, was able to see spiritual. But when it gets filtered through the body, then it becomes bihakshama, that all it is able to do is come into physicality. It's physical. And the same thing is the light, and that third step. When it comes down into the vessel, now it's no longer as spiritual, as infinite as it was before. Now it becomes bihakshama, that it changes according to the vessel, where it gets defined and limited and affected, that it starts functioning just like the vessel does. This is in chachma, this in chesed. Now it already gets limited according to how the vessel is, and that's the lowest level of the way that the light gets changed when it goes to the tzimtzum. Any questions?
Nope.
It seems like a half hour is a little too short to go through this, just one paragraph here, but whatever. We kind of rushed through it. So God willing, on Sunday, we'll have a little bit more time, and I don't know if we'll talk about it, just continue. But we'll...
Happy birthday, Rabbi Friedman.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Okay.
What time is it on Sunday?
What was that? Sunday will be regular time, 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Mitzvah Shem. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
Yes. Have a good Shabbos and stay healthy.
Okay. You too.
Yeah. Okay.